Good.
Hey, Julie, this is Donna. Sorry I'm late. Dave McDonald called and he said, please hold off on the discussion until he joins. He's like 2 minutes from his house.
Okay. I figure I can start and we can go over the minutes and, yep.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so welcome everyone. Personnel Committee meeting for Monday, March 8th. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded, may be broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. The Town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19 coronavirus, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread. And all town facilities are currently closed to the public. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. This meeting will be recorded and will be able to be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting. Following information is also provided for members of the public that would like to view the meeting remotely. To view remotely from a computer, you can use the Zoom link, or from a telephone, dial the toll-free number 929-205-6099, enter webinar ID 871-8776-2453 pound. If you have not registered with Zoom, you'll be asked for your name and an email address. Note, no participant ID is needed, just press pound when asked. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. So the first item is approval of minutes from February 24, 2021.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from February 24, 2021.
Or a second?
Second.
All right, so let's see. Joanna,
Aye.
Donna? I think she said aye.
Wasn't muted. I.
Aye.
Sue? So if you said anything, you're muted.
No, she's not muted. Did we lose her?
I don't know. I just see, there we go. You there, Sue?
Now she's muted. There she goes.
Well, I'm an aye. Is that enough votes, or do we need?
3.
Because we're obviously we can't hear Sue, and then there's Dave. So are we good?
You go with 3 votes.
Okay. So are we gonna wait for?
Yeah, I mean, we could skip that for now. The position descriptions for the election worker and registrar, we don't have those ready yet either. We're still gonna put it in the article though. Leave it there and hopefully be able to get them soon.
Good.
And then the personnel action form is also going to, we're gonna skip over that too. No longer needed.
All right. So the only thing left is the SAP longevity discussion.
That is it. Make sure Dave's not hanging out. Sam. Sue said she did approve the minutes. We just can't hear her,
Okay.
which is weird. All right. I mean, I think we got to keep this ball rolling. So Dave
Yeah.
will on when he pops on.
How about before, well, I think maybe one thing we could do is, Julie, could you just describe the document, the spreadsheet there?
Yep.
And I mean, to me, it looks like you got different fiscal years here for, are these all the people that would be impacted or just some of them?
All up through FY31.
Okay,
So it's showing those that would receive a longevity benefit this year being, I got 22, I should say, not this year. So FY22 through FY31. And although it's really small and hard to read, basically it breaks it down, and we had figured it out to match the clerical amount, the clerical longevity amounts, and figured out the amount if we match the police and fire longevity amounts. And then with the numbers, you can see the differences as we go through each year.
the police and fire longevity amounts, I mean, those contracts are collective bargaining agreements are negotiated separately, right? But it just so happens that over time, the longevity
Is Dave.
amounts they've kind of been the same.
I'm not too familiar with the history on the police and fire longevity amounts. I don't know how long they've been set at these rates, but primarily the difference between police and fire longevity amounts and the clerical and the SAP currently has 10, 15, 20, 25. And the police is 10, 15, 20 years of service.
Okay.
I can speak to when those were negotiated in. So the last time the police union agreement was negotiated was when it shifted from a percentage of the salary to a flat rate. And the fire was the last agreement as well.
Okay.
So, Julie, can you help me understand? There are some years that there are more people affected than other years.
That's probably based on the people hitting their 10 years of service getting added into the.
Okay,
So
thank
you'll
you.
see that build throughout each fiscal year, assuming that nobody retires or leaves.
And so for just looking at, let's say, FY 22,
Mhm.
It looks like, I mean, the amount in red there is the basically saying just take the payroll benefit coordinator. So under their percentage amount, they would get the 1,600. And under, if we match a clerical amount, they're getting 850. Is that correct?
Which is the difference of, say, 750.
Yeah.
And then the same with the police. If if that position was receiving 1280,
Yeah.
it would still be a difference of $323, basically.
So when you get to, if we were to match the police and fire, some people end up doing much better and some people do worse.
Kind of, yeah.
And then matching the clerical, it's less, it's basically it's less for everybody.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions if we could.
Yeah.
How you doing, by the way? Sorry, I was a couple minutes late.
No problem.
One is, when this was first brought to us, I'd just like to know a couple of things. Why are we taking away money from the employees? When that was brought to us, I thought we're trying to keep up with the unions. So a couple of questions. I'm not in favor of taking a dime away from the employees. I can see it stabilizing it and budgeting it. I'm looking at this, and I got your sheets, by the way, so thank you. But I'm not in favor of this at all, as far as taking money away. Now, I know if you take a look at it, and I was looking at it today, I know it's going to save the town a lot of money over a 10-year period. But there's other avenues I think we can look at than this. I think maybe if we can keep it grandfathered in for until new employees or something, there's got to be something that we can do. But again, guys, I'm just not in favor of this, and that's my opinion. I think that when this is presented to us in the future, we really need all of the facts, and we weren't given the facts the last time when we approved this. And that's my opinion, Mr. Chair.
One more question. Julie, at the last discussion, there was a mention of that certain people would be flagged, and I wondered if that meant they wouldn't be affected now, but they would be affected in the future. Can you just expand on that flagging?
So let's just pull an example here. If we look at the FY22, the COA director, if we were to change to the clerical longevity amounts, she would be capped at her current amount, which you see is the amount listed. The longevity amount at the current clerical would be 1850, and she's already receiving over that. So she would be capped at her current amount until she reaches the next increment, the next higher increment. So in that case, it would be 25 years.
Mr. Chair, if I can,
Yep.
like a question to the town manager. Town manager, why are we doing this? What is the reason behind it?
So this has been something the select board has asked for, negotiated with all our unions to move longevity from a percentage to a flat rate. The reasoning behind it is longevity is a benefit based on your years of service, not a salary.
Okay.
So
how did you come up with the numbers that we have here?
they're based on what the other unions receive. So last time we presented the clerical union, because that is, they're more comparable positions within the clerical union compared to the SAP. And we also provided analysis looking at it compared to the fire and union.
So the question I have is, has any union employees lost money?
Well, they negotiated those into the agreement. So if you were to give the same analysis as we did for the SAP employees, yes, over time they would have. There's no way around that, because as your salary increases, it's tied to a percentage. Obviously, it's naturally going to be always more than a flat rate.
Unless the flat rates were really generous.
Right. I'd also point out, we did, just to find out what other towns were doing as far as longevity, did a survey, and the results that we got back, majority of them don't provide longevity.
So normally when I ran my company's Marshalls or Melville Corporation, we would put a new policy in effect for new employees coming on board, but we wouldn't go back and take away. At least I would never do that. So any employee coming on fiscal year of next year would follow those new guidelines. Any employees that are in the system now would stay grandfathered. That would be my recommendation. I don't know how you feel about that, Heather.
I don't have, have to give it more thought, and that's something I would want the select board to weigh in as well.
I think the select board probably should weigh in on it. I agree with that.
Yeah, and they will, once an article is submitted, it will be up for discussion.
I mean, we're only one board. So, I mean, again, Mr. Chair, my recommendation would be to do what I just said, but I understand what Heather and Julie are saying. It's just that it's just not fair from what I see.
And Mr. Chair, I'd like to apologize to the board. I was reading the spreadsheet and didn't realize I was not on mute as you all got to hear my dogs bark. So I apologize for that. And secondly, I just wanted to say, as Heather, you said negotiation, there was a loss there, but somehow we recapped it on another end. So have we thought of another way that we're going to make this difference up to the employees in this said contract?
I didn't mean to infer that we recapped it on another end. It was something that was agreed to when we went through negotiations.
Right. Okay. So then forget the first half and just the second half. Seeing that all the employees are going to be at a loss, have we come or identified something else to try to take or make up that loss?
That would be a consideration that the personnel committee could take up.
I think one thing that's unusual about this longevity, so I was a longtime teacher, and it's not unusual to see some teacher contracts that that have some sort of longevity bonus. But from what I've seen in my experience, a longevity bonus was, well, again, for teachers is usually pretty small. Let's say maybe $500 or maybe more as you get up in the years. But it was a at least from my memory, it was a one-time thing. It was like a one-time payment on year 15 or year 20 or year 25. Correct me if I'm wrong, but these longevity payments are, once you get it, let's say at year 10, you get it every year until the next one.
Yes.
And is that correct, Heather, that did I hear you correct, that is unusual for other towns, that they don't even have longevity?
In the towns that I received the responses back, a majority don't provide any longevity payment for non-union. There were some with different scenarios, and I think that was sent to the board as well. If you look in your email results. I can go through.
This is Sue. Am I unmuted?
That's it.
Oh, good. I appreciate Dave's position, but if indeed, when these contracts were written in other units, they lost or they changed in such a way that over a longer period of time, the employees might have lost some things. I think this is comparable to that, and I'm not entirely opposed to that. Its longevity is generally not tied to salary. It's tied to just a set amount. So I think if this puts it in line with other things, I'm okay with making the change. And if we didn't make any amendments to either the fire or the clerical or the police when they changed their contracts, then although it's a difficult pill to swallow, I think that there is reason to make the change.
Casey, you have your hand raised.
I do. So I don't have can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
All right, so I don't have the information that you have that Julie provided, but I did, out of my own curiosity, I took an example of an employee that made 100 grand in year 10, and I figured out the difference in what they would have made over the next 20 years to year 30 versus what the old longevity is versus the new, and there was a substantial difference. It was $37,000 over the course of a 20-year. And then once you retire, it's going to affect your top 3 or 5 years, depending on when you started. So by the time you are retired for 20 years, it's actually going to be around $68,000. I think we were hired under the pretense of getting longevity based on a percentage of our salary. I understand why they want to do it, but I don't think it's right to take it away from people that are already hired under that pretense. The other unions negotiated, whereas we don't have the option to negotiate. We don't have a union. So I would just ask that the board consider grandfathering existing employees hired before the change.
Yes,
Mylene, yep.
I'm sorry. I don't know your first
okay.
name, and then your Zoom name doesn't indicate what that might be, but
I don't know how to edit it. Yeah, I second Mr. Casey, because staff doesn't have a representative, because most of us are department head and secretary and everything like that. So everybody can negotiate their thing, but we don't have anything like that, just like the others. Others can, they lost their thing, but they gain something else, but as staff, if we lost that, we will lose it. And I think I agree what, we should be grandfathered to the previous one, and then moving forward, probably just change it to the, because no matter what, at the 20 years, we're gonna lose funds. And then like me, I'm a step 8, and it's gonna be my last cap next fiscal year 2022. I will not have any more raise besides if I will have this longevity. And then if we even have a COLA, even because we only get a COLA 2% raise when for a long time, because one of our department head asked about it, and thank goodness it was given to us for at least 3 years. After fiscal year 2022, we don't even know what we're gonna get. Like we don't have representative like others do. We represent our own, so please make it that as consideration to those who are here already.
anyone else like to comment on this or any proposed changes? I understand Dave's and what we heard from others.
Mr. Chair, if we could.
Nancy?
Yep, I would just like to also say, I think it should be grandfathered for the current employees. When we had the sick leave buyback, that's what happened. They kept what was in the SAP for the current employees, and the new employees are not eligible for that. And that's what you were hired under, and that's fine, because you didn't get that. So it's been done before to grandfather employees under the current SAP.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could, Heather, could we get your opinion on it? What would you really like to do as a town manager?
I think you asked me that earlier. As far as the grandfathering, yeah, I'd have to give it more thought. The concepts I think was fair. Is all the other units negotiated this through bargaining and agreed to it, and we're trying to make all employees on as level playing field as possible. So if the union members are getting a flat rate, I think it would be only fair that SAP employees get the same. None of the union employees were grandfathered.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I still think that, and again, I've done a lot of contracts with other companies and other businesses, and when I hire a person, it's a deal. And this is part of the package, this is part of the benefits. To take away a benefit is, no matter what it is, it's tough. I mean, if it's economic times, that's one thing. I know people sometimes, you have to cut payrolls, that's another. But I've never experienced where you go in and tell an employee, we're going to take away what was there, part of your hiring package. And that also includes people that were hired as recently as Rob, our DPW director. This affects him. And I just think that if the town wants to do a policy like this, I don't have a problem with it. But start it now before new hires come on, and don't promise a new hire something and not deliver. That's just, to me, it's wrong. But
Okay.
I also will go along with what we have to do. And I also agree with what Sue said as well. Thank you, Sue, for your comments, by the way.
Barb had her hand up.
Yep. Sorry, I'm trying to get my video to go on, but it won't. Anyway, sorry. I understand that the other groups have negotiated and gone to the flat rate, and I understand that you'd probably want to be consistent. However, we haven't negotiated, and so there were some deals made back and forth in order to make that change. And the union would have been sure it was equitable and fair to all the employees. And I just don't feel it's been done in this instance. The other thing is that because the proposal is also to match us to the clerical union, I don't believe that's fair, because those employees are all 36 hours a week or less. And as Mylene had said in the last meeting, we all work 40 hours or more. So to put us on the same flat rate schedule as the clerical union, I also don't think is fair. And that's all. Thank you.
Casey?
Yes, I would just like to second what Bob said. There's a give and take when you negotiate. It's not just take away, there's also a getting somewhere else, which we're not doing here. We're not comparable to the clerical union. I just don't think that we should be comparing. If we're going to compare to the clerical union, I think you would have to look at the whole contract they have. They also get more bereavement days and other things as far as sick buyback that we don't get. So I don't think it would be right or equitable to have us be equal to them in one area and then not in other areas. That's all.
Okay.
And I agree that with the negotiation, it's months of give and take on both sides. You all come with your list of things and you go back and forth and work at all of those financial gains. As I said at the beginning, there are some takeaways, but okay, for a year, we might give you an additional 1% COLA to make up. So there is that whole back and forth for months on end, going back and forth. I agree with grandfathering. The said employees, and as new employees come in, go to that flat rate. But I am not comfortable taking away financial money to anybody. And I also think we should look at separate union contracts, because I find I don't want anybody on this call, you are department heads, to sort of look at a clerical contract versus a professional department head contract. I'm in a professional contract where I work, and we have a clerical contract, and they're two separate distinctions. And I think you all deserve so much more than you're getting. And I just want to add that.
I still see a couple Zoom hands up, but I'm guessing that those are old ones that haven't disappeared. Or Barb, do you have something new you want to add, or?
No, I'm sorry. I'll take it off.
Sorry. So I think there's maybe a few issues here. So one, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the personnel committee a few weeks ago kind of already voted to put this forward as an article. Is that correct? This change? Julie?
We haven't actually been able to get to the article yet because we haven't made a decision on this yet.
Okay, so
We can mention it.
if we want to change that, we can make a motion. Someone could make a motion for a change and then we could vote on that today.
Yes,
But then you said, is it correct, Julie? You said that this would, or Heather, that this would then, or whatever we recommend would go back to the select board?
Yeah, they would discuss it at an upcoming meeting.
Okay. So I mean, I definitely think there's consensus around grandfathering this in, from what I heard. But I think the other main issue is if we did do that, which kind of flat rate are we going to match new hires to? The difference, I mean, when you talk about sewer business managers and treasurers and town managers, fire chief, it doesn't seem correct, just like we've heard from others that you would match that to the clerical contract. So I guess if we're going to match anything, maybe there would be another a motion that we match the police and fire contract, which seems closest.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yeah.
They can do anything they want. If we grandfather everything back as of today, they can eliminate it if they want in the future, because
Right.
it's a new employee. They can do any policy they want at that point. But I think it's up to town management to figure out what they want to do when it comes to that, not us.
If I may, Mr. Chair, it would have to be part of the warrant article, though. We can't, if there's an elimination for any new employees, that would have to be, part of the warrant article.
Or going forward though, after the grandfathering, but your warrant is closing the 15th, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, we have a very limited time because you're still gonna go aboard in front of the selectmen for this, correct? To approve the warrant?
Yes, they can. They have the ability to remove articles. I don't think in this case they would remove it. But it would go before them to discuss. Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
So I guess I'm confused on what our role here is. And if it's not up to us, what the longevity amount is, or then what are we voting on?
I think it is up to the personnel committee to make that recommendation of how the language is going to be worded in the warrant article.
Okay.
So for example, we could do a motion, Mr. Chair, that the board wants to keep the existing and grandfather it back and maybe change the future employees as an effective date, the 15th of March or something like that. Now, what that entails after would be a different look. And as I just said to town manager, you can eliminate it. I don't think we want to eliminate it from future employees, but you could. If we're going to grandfather every employee today that we have, that when they signed the dotted line to work for the town of Lunenburg said, this is what you're going to get, then that's grandfathered in. After that, it's up to how you want to sell the jobs. And when you're doing an interview, or if Julie's doing an interview, it's always nice to say, what are my benefits? And say, these are the benefits for working in Lunenburg. But you can eliminate that. I don't know how the select board would feel about that. So it's hard for us to tell what the select board is going to say about that, Madam Town Manager. But I would put a motion out there to grandfather that, if you like.
So I think that there's, before we get to that, Dave, I know you said, I think Heather, that other towns don't have these longevity payments. So is that, if we were to, to grandfather current employees in, would it be like your recommendation or the town's recommendation that there is no longevity payments for new employees going forward? It certainly seems like that would put new employees in a very different category than the clerical union, the police, and the fire.
That would not be my recommendation, correct?
Okay, would someone from the Personnel Committee like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, if we could I ask Sue, how do you feel about this? You have a lot of experience in this, Sue.
Am I off mute?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. So I do see the value in taking a closer look at whether we should use the clerical path or the other contract, only as it relates to that. It would seem to me, I haven't looked at it close enough, but it would seem to me that there are certainly some lower end employees in the SAP, and there's some director level employees in the SAP, and maybe there's a difference between the two that needs to be examined. But I still, I am not in favor of grandfathering, but I do see the value in making sure that we create the right longevity amount for the right levels of contribution to the town. So a director level might very clearly need to be on the other contract, the other longevity amount.
And my motion would be to have all existing people in the SAP grandfathered with the existing longevity. Any new employees coming in, if they are a department head, that they would go with the police and fire. If they are in a clerical, not department head, then they would go into the clerical longevity amounts.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would be in favor of grandfathering in current employees. I think I was thinking it would be a relatively minor loss in pay, and this information here would say that that's not the case, and it's pretty significant over time. So if this is what kind of people were signing up for, I think as government employees, we're used to health insurance costs going up and stuff like that. But this would be a pretty significant hit over time to people's salaries that I think would be unusual to expect anyone to be okay with.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Sorry, I can't raise my hand on my phone. I have to say that I agree with Sue to some degree that as a person that worked for corporations my entire career, I'm not accustomed to having signed on a dotted line when I join a company and there's always benefits, right? When you sign on to take a job, there's always benefits that are outlined, but those benefits can change. Business changes over time, and there are sometimes reasons for businesses to reduce or eliminate certain things that I may have seen as a perk or or a benefit. But that happens all the time. And so I have to say that I agree with Sue in this matter. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep. I think one thing I would add is that we're talking about a very, really a kind of a small number of people here that are impacted, at least in the next, I don't know, whatever it is, 10 years or so. And I think if the town, wants to do something different going forward, I would hope that it does make sense to kind of get in line with what other town employees are experiencing. But I definitely see a difference between what the clerical union might have and what the police and fire might have. And maybe some of these employees should be in a totally different category, whether that's a third category, but maybe that's something that can be determined at a future date. But if someone would like to make a motion on the recommendation here, we can at least put that up for a vote.
Mr. Chair, I think Joanna made a motion. I think we're looking to second it for discussion. Joanna, did you make a motion?
I did.
And I would like to second that motion for discussion.
Thank you, David.
And the motion again, Joanna, was,
The motion is to keep the existing SAP longevity as is grandfathered for the existing employees. All new coming department heads would follow the fire and police, and all clerical, not department heads, would follow the clerical longevity. And to just add on that, I work in a town, my husband works in a town, Lunenburg's a town, and all three of us get longevity. So I know, and I came from Pepperell, and we had longevity. So it is a common in a contractual union process.
I think people have probably, I think we have discussed that motion some already, but would anyone else like to discuss that before a vote?
Chair, if I could, I got one more comment on it. We could also take option 3, and that would be to table this until the fall town meeting and let the selectmen give their input to this and keep it off the warrant until fall town meeting, and let's really take a look at it. I'm not trying to push it away, but it's not going anywhere. So maybe push it to the fall town meeting.
You said get whose input?
The select board. Since the warrant closes on the 15th, time is running out. And I don't know what's today's date. The 8th. Heather, what do you think of that? Would that be a smart move to do?
That would be up to the committee. It would just include the other pieces of the article that need to be addressed as far as the positions that need to be added to the comp and class plan.
So this is Sue. I can support Joanna's second part of hers, but I can't support the first part.
Thank you.
I think, I think there is some support to grandfather current employees in. I think maybe where the select board's input would be important is what happens with new employees. So what if we amended Joanna's motion to just reply to grandfathering current employees, and then we'll wait for the select board to give some input on what happens with new hires.
I don't know if I'm mistaken, but I think Sue was saying she supports my second end, which is the new employees, the following department head, and she doesn't support the grandfather.
Yep, I heard that too.
Correct.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Correct. So Eric, I also am concerned that somebody, I'm not sure who said earlier that it's only a few employees. If we grandfather, it would be every single employee in this unit.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a spreadsheet that shows how many people would be impacted over the next 10 years. And it looks like it's about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, maybe 14.
And again, that's if all 14 stay here for the 20 years
Right.
to get that longevity. if new people come in at those titles, they would follow that different path.
And I guess what I'm suggesting is that that tonight, let's vote on what happened with our current employees, and let's table or get input from what that means, from select board for what that means for future employees. I don't think we necessarily need to decide that tonight. But there's been a motion, so I guess there's already been a motion in a second. So do we need to vote on that?
Well, we can amend Joanna's motion if you like. I can amend Joanna's motion if you like, Joanna.
Yeah, what's the amendment?
I would amend it that we grandfather in all the employees as of now, and keep it the way it is. Grandfather all the existing SAP employees now, and not talk about what's going to happen tomorrow.
With new hires.
The new hire.
Now just go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, I would just say advise against not doing both parts, because if we have employees, if this change goes through and we have new employees that start, we have nothing to fall back on as far as.
So that was going to be my question to you. Yeah, what would that mean if someone needed to be hired tomorrow? That there would be no plan for them.
Right.
So if you go back to what Joanna said, she has her motion is good. Her initial motion.
Okay.
Any new employees coming on, would they follow the new SAP that town manager gave us? That's the question I have. So would you go back to that schedule that you guys sent out already? Or you have the option to eliminate it altogether?
So the only problem, I'm just trying to foresee potential issues down the road is if there's no guarantee that police and fire stay in line with each other, right? I mean, potentially the police union could negotiate something different for longevity, 5 years down the road than fire does. Is that correct? And then what does that mean? What would that mean for, SAP employees? Because we're kind of, the motion was basically to tie it to police and fire, but they're not necessarily going to be the same forever. So then what would we go by?
I'm thinking someone would probably make that recommendation after those rates change to look at these rates would be my thought.
Mr. Chair, did you read the article by chance? I'm just looking at the article now. Did anybody see the actual article?
I don't think I think Julie said we're not taking that up for a vote tonight. Is that correct?
Heather said at least for the positions. So I just resent it. We had it at the last, at our last meeting, but I just resent it in case you didn't have it from the last meeting. We have to at least get what we know put into the article.
Yeah. Can I clarify? If you're going to change the longevity of the meeting, it needs to be in the article.
It needs to be what?
If you're going to change the longevity for this upcoming annual town meeting, it needs to be in the article. But if you're delaying it a vote till the fall town meeting, then it just will need to include the positions that will be added to the grid.
Okay. All right, well, we have a motion on the floor, so why don't we vote on the motion that Joanna mentioned? And
Eric?
Yeah.
Sue Doherty has her hand raised.
Okay, Sue.
Hi, can I just ask, what is the police and fire? what are they doing right now? What did they negotiate?
So I can tell you, so you know the clerical amounts, 10 is 850, 15 is 1350, 20 years is 1850, 25 years is 2350. Police and fire at 10 years is 1280. 15 years is 1920. And then 20 years is 3200. And DPW, just for the record, at 5 years is 850, 10 years is 1350, 15 years 1850, and 20 is 2350. So that would be the same as clerical.
All right. Can,
Thank you.
I think we're ready to vote now on,
Mr. Chair, can we have Joanna repeat the motion?
My motion is to keep the existing longevity plan grandfathered in for the existing employees in the plan. Moving forward, any new employees coming in based on their job title, if they are considered a department head, they would follow the police, fire, longevity. If they are in the clerical side, they would follow the clerical side.
okay. So I'm just gonna go around in the order I see your names here. Sue,
Okay, am I unmuted?
yep,
Okay, good. I can't support that.
okay. Joanna,
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Donna,
I'm sorry, I can't support that either.
and I would be a aye for that. So I think the vote would be 3-2, so the motion passes. And then, as far as what else is on the agenda. I think is that it, Julie, for agenda items?
Yeah, since I didn't put the article on here, I guess so.
Okay,
Oh, no, the article is on there.
Yeah, just, I would take a vote that you're submitting the article to include your previous vote and the remainder of the article on language on the positions to be added to the record.
I would make a motion to move forward the article to, for the warrant to the Board of Selectmen as amended this evening.
all right. So basically that second paragraph is going to be removed with the new language that we just voted on from the article. Is that correct, Heather?
You're on mute, Heather.
I'm just pulling it up so we can look at it.
So the first part of the article is about the positions, and then the last line of that first paragraph says to amend chapter 70, section 26 entitled longevity pay as depicted below. So I think as what's depicted below is this whole second paragraph on, the going to the flat amount. So we're gonna have to change that in the article to reflect what was voted on tonight.
Yes, yeah, the second paragraph.
Okay.
Mhm.
So is the motion then is to, as was already stated, to approve the article with the changes that were made tonight. Sue
Yep, aye.
and Dave,
Just come back to me.
we'll
Mr.
come back to Joanna.
Aye.
Mr.
Yep,
Mr. Chair, sorry, Donna. My internet keeps dropping, so I've missed some of the conversation. I have a question about the second line in the article. It says Schedule A as follows, the position of assistant. Is that doubling the position, that phrase, the position, or is that correct? And Julie, I'm sorry, I really tried hard to get all of this stuff to you way before the meeting, but I just didn't have it.
No worries. The position. Yeah, that's a double.
Okay. I just kept thinking I was reading it wrong.
Yeah, I just had to reread it myself.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, it's a yay.
okay. I'm a yay. Dave,
The question I got, Mr. Chair, is on the second paragraph, would it say any employees hired after such a date, that second paragraph becomes effective? Instead of taking it out, is that what you would do?
It would be effective, I think it's town meeting date, right?
Well, whatever. I mean, if we're doing the article and then it says the second paragraph is still good for any new hires hired after whatever the date town management decides.
well, the thing, the second, nothing really in the second paragraph can stay there because what we passed tonight kind of set up two different longevity. Some new hires will be matched to the police fire longevity scale and some are going to be matched to the clerical. So
Yep, no, you're right. Okay, thank you. So it was an eye for me.
all right. So that the amended article passed. I hear a motion to adjourn.
I wish everybody a happy Easter season, and I make a motion to adjourn.
Did we get everything on the agenda?
Yes, we passed over the other items.
I'm sorry, I wasn't here. Okay.
No, yeah, when you weren't here, Dave, we were really efficient. It was,
Very good. Thank you. And it was a tough decision, Mr. Chair. You did a good job tonight. Thank you.
do we get a second on the adjournment?
Second.
All right. All in favor, Joanna,
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Donna?
Aye.
And I think Sue left.
No, I'm here. That's
Oh.
fine. Yep.
All right. And I'm an aye. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for everyone's input the past couple weeks.
Julie and Heather, thank you for those numbers. That was really helpful in this discussion. I really appreciate the extra effort putting that all together. Thank you.
Welcome.
Really did.
Have a good night, guys.
All right, bye-bye.
Great.